Good morning, Eric Blank, and this is the Commissioner's Weekly Meeting for September 13th. Commissioner Gelman, any preliminary comments, or are you ready to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Good morning. Nothing to add, and I would vote to approve the consent agenda.
As would I. Thank you. Mr. Branson, annual state 911 report for submission to the legislature. Ms. Kirkland, Mr. Branson.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Darrell Branson, Jennifer Kirkland for Commission staff. The item before you today is the draft of an annual report required by Title 40, Article 2, Section 131 of the Colorado Revised Statutes, which directs the Commission to publish and transmit to members of the General Assembly a State of 911 report by September 15 of each year. This is the 6th edition of this report. The statute states that in developing this report each year, the Commission shall consult with public safety answering points, 911 governing bodies, and statewide organizations that represent public safety agencies. As in previous years, the Commission staff has engaged with interested members of the local 911 stakeholder community via the Commission's 911 Advisory Task Force to help with updating of the report. Additionally, a draft of this report was provided to several statewide public safety associations for their input, all of which are listed in the appendix of the report. While the statute requires that the Commission provide this report to the legislature, and it is therefore the Commission's report to provide, it is also a collaborative document that represents a consensus of all of the individuals and organizations which have chosen to participate in the development process. The report is 66 pages long, and as such, it is difficult to summarize succinctly, but some of the main themes of the report include a description of the work that has been accomplished in the deployment of next generation 911 technology and systems in the state, as well as a discussion of the work yet to be completed. The fact that the Commission has recently concluded a rulemaking process to create a mechanism for improvement of 911 network resiliency and to investigate 911 network failures. The fact that Colorado is in a small minority of states that have no minimum operational or training standards for 911 call centers. The fact that Colorado is one of only 5 states with no state level purchasing mechanism to pay for statewide 911 projects. And that there is a growing gap between the what residents pay in local emergency telephone charges, with some local 911 governing bodies setting rates as much as 4 or 5 times as much as other governing bodies. Additionally, the report makes 3 primary recommendations for the legislature. First, the legislature should work with 911 stakeholders to develop minimum operational and training standards for 911 centers. Second, the legislature should consider legislation to create a 911 services enterprise, filling that need for a state level purchasing mechanism based on draft legislation being proposed by the Commission's 911 Advisory Task Force. And third, the legislature should consider providing the Commission with more guidance regarding the criteria that should be used when assessing emergency telephone charge applications. Beyond these 3 main points and recommendations, the statute requiring this report specifically directs that 7 topic areas be covered, all of which are covered thoroughly in the report. And the Commission should also be aware that there is a requirement that the Commission present this report verbally to the Senate Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology, or its successor committee, and the House of Representatives Committee on Business Affairs and Labor, or its successor committee, on or before February 1st of each year. What we need today is a vote to either approve or not approve the report for release to the legislature, but we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Appreciate Mr. Branson and Ms. Kirkland, the effort that went into this. So thanks so much for that, Commissioner Gelman.
Yeah, thank you both for your work on this. Always enlightening report for me to read from you, an analysis of what's going on and really where we can continue to improve in terms of providing reliable 911 service throughout the state. I agree with your recommendations and appreciate you additionally putting them into context so we can understand kind of what's going on elsewhere, you know, why these things could benefit Colorado. And I think that's very helpful information for the legislature to understand. I think it's covered in the report, but we did somewhat adjust, I think, the recommendation regarding the prepaid phone surcharge. You know, in the past, we'd expressed some significant concern that it could be regressive or highly regressive in that individuals who are able to only purchase smaller quantities at a time. Maybe for their prepaid phone might end up paying multiple times, but as I understand it, Mr. Branson, Ms. Kirkland, you've done some internal research that perhaps things are working a bit differently in the prepaid realm now, and that is less of a concern than when we initially identified it. So just wanted to identify, maybe verbally, I know it's in the report, why that got a little bumped from the radar here, but really appreciate it, and thank you for your good work.
Yes,
Yeah,
if I can respond to that just briefly.
Sure.
I just want to say, yes, it is described in the report in the section on prepaid, and I just wanted to acknowledge the work done by Jolene Sina, the surcharge administrator, who did the research in determining what the payment plans typically are for prepaid service now.
well, again, thanks. I had just one question. You were talking about differentials in terms of 911 charges. It was much as a factor of 4 to 5 to 1. Is that mainly an urban rural split? And, do we need to, would there be some benefit with consolidation away from perhaps smaller counties into larger groupings? I just wanted to flag that 4 to 5 to 1 differential in charges.
The answer is yes, there is an urban-rural divide component to it. Not all rural areas have increased their local emergency telephone charge dramatically, but the ones that do have the highest rates in the state are all rural communities. So the ones with the $3 or $4 rates are all rural communities. Consolidation of 911 centers to realize cost savings is one approach that could be taken by local agencies. There are a lot of factors and decisions and components to that decision that have to go into that consideration before they determine whether or not it would actually even save money, and whether or not it would be worth any other benefits that they get from having their own local 911 center. So I'm hesitant to say that that is the answer. However, the issue of some residents paying significantly more for 911 service for essentially the same service, or sometimes even service that does not meet the same criteria as those in urban areas, is one that I do think should be concerning to the legislature as well as to the commission.
Well, again, appreciate everything. I think that's a 2-0 vote to adopt the report, and we'll do that by mid-century. So thanks very much to the both of you.
Thank you.
Proceeding number 21A-0141E, Public Service Company of Colorado Clean Energy Plan. And Mr. Davis, Ms. McLaughlin.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm Ron Davis of the Commission's advisory staff, and I'm joined by Erin McLaughlin, Commission Counsel, this morning. At last week's weekly meeting, the Commission granted a third extension to the filing date for the bid evaluation and selection report from Public Service Company of Colorado in phase 2 of the company's electric resource plan proceeding. This particular ERP includes a clean energy plan. Given the extension granted last week, the so-called 120-day report will be filed this coming Monday, September 18th. What's before you today is whether to modify the balance of the phase 2 schedule. The filing deadlines for phase 2 entail a report from the independent evaluator on whether the bid selection and evaluation processes were fair and reasonable and consistent with the Commission's phase 1 decision. And by the ERP rules, comments from the intervening parties on the 120-day report are permitted after the IE files its report. So the intervener party comments are due approximately 45 days after the 120-day report is submitted according to the ERP rules. And then Public Service will have the chance to file a response to all of those comments, and the Commission then deliberates and issues a written phase 2 decision establishing a cost-effective resource plan. The entire matter comes before you now because Public Service filed a joint motion for a partial waiver of certain ERP rules for modifications to the phase 2 process not just the date for the filing of the 120-day report, but for the following comments and when the commission would issue its decision. The joint movements include public service, staff of the commission, and the independent evaluator. They proposed that in addition to moving the date for the 120-day report, the IE's deadline for its report would move from October 11th to October 26th, and the deadline for the filing of intervener comments would move from October 26th to November 17th. The company's responsive comments would be filed on December 4th instead of November 10th, and the written phase 2 decision is requested by January 11th instead of December 11th. Certain independent power producers represented in this case by the Colorado Independent Energy Association, Interwest Energy Alliance, and the Colorado Solar and Storage Association with the Solar Energy Industries Association filed a joint response in opposition to the relief requested in the joint motion. They argue that the schedule adjustments are really not for public service to complete its modeling analysis or for the 120-day report, but rather the requested extensions are for the benefit of the IE and staff, as well as a significant extension for public services on reply comments. They ask that the commission determine that the joint motion is prejudicial to the independent power producers and will increase the risk of higher bid costs and project viability in a manner that outweighs the purported benefits of the extensions. In the alternatives, the IPPs put forward a schedule for phase 2. Their proposed schedule concludes with a phase 2 decision issued on December 15th. They also argue that the risk of increased costs, project construction delays, and resource adequacy issues outweigh the proposed modifications, and therefore ask that the Commission afford certain IPP projects with later in-service dates. While the Commission granted the request for the 1-week extension for the 120-day report, it set response time to the balance of the phase 2 schedule proposals. Onward Energy and COSACIA filed responses last Friday. Both are very supportive of the notion that the Commission issue its phase 2 decision by year end, and therefore their positions closely align with the IPP schedule proposals. The commissioners have before them several options, we think. There's an ERP rules-based schedule that would be driven off of the September 18th filing. The proposed dates in the joint motion are still before you, and the alternative dates from the IPP's response are also before you. The commission can also devise its own alternatives, weighing the factors that are raised in the pleadings. I can answer your questions, or I could proceed to a recommendation if you'd like.
If you could give us a recommendation, and then we'll come back with questions, comments, or.
Sure. Advisors agree with the IPPs that the commission should endeavor to render its phase 2 decision as soon as it reasonably can, and preferably by year end. That approach aligns with the ERP rules, which were established to ensure viable bids through an expedited phase 2 process. We recommend that the commission adopt a schedule that provides some additional time for the IE for its report and some additional time for the intervening parties to submit their comments. And likewise, we think some additional time could be afforded to public service for its response. However, all of these extensions together should not combine to a total amount of time that jeopardizes the commission's ability to render a phase 2 decision by the end of this year, preferably in accordance with the ERP rules or on or around December 18th. So we recommend that the commission set October 20th as the date for the IE's report, November 8th as the date for the parties' comments, and November 20th as the date for public services reply. The commission should further extend the deadline for the phase 2 emission verification report from CDPHE and the deadline for the company to initiate the performance incentive mechanism stakeholder process. Those extensions should be in accordance with previous decisions, as those dates tie to the date the 120-day report is filed. And because of this effort to keep the phase 2 process on track as much as possible, we recommend that the commission deny the request for any extensions to in-service dates at this time based on the pleadings before the commission now.
Commissioner Gilman.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Yeah, I think you've laid out a reasonable schedule to move forward here, clearly kind of working with these kind of contrasting priorities of ensuring that things are complete and everyone has enough time to complete their specific scopes of work, but also ensuring that these bids stay viable and move forward as expeditiously as possible. And that's to say, I mean, all the signals, I think I mentioned this last time, but all the signals from the company are that this is an incredibly complicated, go around at this. So who knows what more is to come once everyone else starts in this. So I think it's important to move forward with the schedule that you've laid forward, so we can be as expeditious as possible, at least at this point.
I likewise support your recommendation. At some point, I may be open to seeing the in-service dates delayed a little to make sure we keep viable projects with low prices, but it's probably premature to make that decision today on this record. So I support the recommendation, and that can be an ABC decision. Mr. Davis, setting deadlines consistent with the recommendation.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Proceeding number 23A-0392EG. Mr. Mendelson, Ms. Dundas, Public Service Company of Colorado, Clean Heat Plan.
Thanks, commissioners. I'm Lindsay Dundas of the Commission Council, and with me is Mr. Mendelson, Mr. Greenberg, and Mr. Davis to answer any questions that may come up. Before you today is Public Services inaugural Clean Heat Plan application filed pursuant to 40-3.2108 CRF and rules 4725 to 4733 of the Commission's gas rules. The Clean Heat statute requires Colorado gas utilities to develop, file, and receive approval of comprehensive clean heat plans designed to achieve greenhouse gas emission reductions, specifically from the reduction of carbon dioxide and methane emissions in the gas distribution system and associated end-use consumption. Gas utilities are required to file a clean heat plan that demonstrates the utility will achieve greenhouse gas emissions of 4% by 2025 based on a 2015 emission level.
Ms. Dundas, your audio is getting like better and worse. I'm not sure if there's maybe something you're moving in front of the computer or something making it.
Yeah, I had the same
For the
concern.
listening public, I think I know most of the details, but just want to make sure it's clear.
Nope, I think you froze, Ms. Dundas. Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Okay, good. I have a lot to say today, so let's hopefully you can hear it. So in its application, Public Service filed this application on August 1st. It proposes to cover an action period of 2024 to 2028 and specifically adjusts the clean heat target for 2025. Within its application, it requests approval of numerous items, including its preferred clean heat plan portfolio and related market transformation efforts, the associated budgets, its proposed cost recovery methodology, as well as the filing date of its next clean heat plan and other administrative matters. In its application, Public Service requests approval of its preferred clean heat plan portfolio, which uses clean heat resources, including recovered methane, hydrogen, beneficial electrification, and DSM, in addition to what it terms other available emission reduction measures, including certified natural gas, carbon offsets, and a market transformation portfolio. The company's preferred portfolio is projected to result in approximately 600,000 equivalent tons of carbon dioxide emission reductions, which reaches 55% of the targeted reductions in 2025. The company also presents other portfolios, including an emissions target portfolio and one that meets the cost target in statute. The Commission noticed its application on August 2nd, and since then has received 17 motions for permissive intervention, as well as interventions by right from staff, UCA, and CEO. Also on September 6th, the Commission received a motion for partial summary judgment from numerous entities seeking intervention here. Broadly, that motion seeks a determination from the Commission that as a matter of law, certified natural gas and carbon offsets are not properly part of a clean heat plan pursuant to the Clean Heat statute. Unless the Commission has any preliminary discussion points it'd like to address, I can move on to the first decision point for today, which is whether to deem the application complete.
Commissioner Gilman, you okay moving on to the first decision point?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Dundas.
Thank you. So pursuant to Commission Rule 1303C and 40-61095 CRS, this application will automatically deem complete on September 16th unless the Commission takes action prior to that date. If the Commission deems the application complete, the 250-day deadline will fall on or about May 23rd, 2024. So I can pause here or wait for a vote on whether to deem the application complete today.
Do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, I would recommend you deem the application complete today so that we can get this proceeding underway.
Commissioner Gilman.
Yeah, thanks. You know, I think the issue of completeness feels pretty complicated. And you know, I think in total, not to scare everyone too much. I think I'm prepared to deem it complete today, but just wanted to point out kind of some of the complexities and real things I'm thinking about in looking at this, and kind of the pros and cons, because I certainly had to consider this more than in a typical filing. You know, outside and apart from the summary judgment request, I've really struggled to identify locations for several pieces of information that were specifically required by the rules in this application. Specifically speaking, I haven't been able to identify how, if at all, the company took into account the considerations in Rule 4731 regarding forecasting. Also, within the rules, the company is specifically asked to address for each clean heat resource, of which green hydrogen, but blue hydrogen is not one, specific costs and throughputs. And I don't see those actually delineated separate and apart from kind of the full bucket of hydrogen. I see in the cost benefit information provided in an E3 report, in some cases, information on costs that were not included within the rules, which, you know, I think they probably can do, but it may exclude some costs that we intended to have included in the rules, like gas infrastructure costs and that cost benefit. So, you know, some of those are the reasons. Also, I haven't been able to identify anywhere the company's identified compatibility of the system and its components with green hydrogen, which the commission determined to be a required part of any portfolio that includes green hydrogen as a resource. So what's giving me trouble is these are all things that are explicitly required in the rules. You know, we spent 1.5 years doing this rulemaking, plugging out what exactly should appear in those rules as requirements. So, you know, to me, it's a challenging place to start, having some of these things. You know, look, it's early, perhaps they're in there. I'm not 100% sure they're not, but I really struggled as I reviewed the application to understand how we had compliance with all of the sections of the rules within this. So I do have some supplemental direct questions to propose to you after we finish this conversation that specifically address some of these areas. Because I understand, look, the timing's already difficult here. So I've really had to weigh and consider what a completeness determination or lack thereof would get us. We're already very challenged, obviously, with the 2025 target timeline, even somewhat challenged probably on a 2030 timeline to ensure that we have time to get these resources in when they need. And not only that, but really this filing has been built up for a couple years now as the place we'll see the future of where we're going with the gas system. And, you know, kind of delaying that entire conversation is probably not incredibly beneficial, despite, you know, some of what I see as deficiencies likely with the rule sections within this application. So long-winded, much more long-winded than usual for a completeness determination. But I just wanted to get out on the table, you know, some of these areas where I am a bit concerned about our starting point in terms of completeness. But at the same time, we have, you know, I think we'll be hitting interveners next. We have a very long list of people who are wishing to intervene in this proceeding. And so, you know, I kind of have to go on faith that ideally with a really large stakeholder group here, there will be opportunities for either the company or others to really develop in these areas where the rules ask for certain information so that we can
Commissioner Gilman froze for me. Is that true for you, Ms. Dundas?
Yeah, I lost Commissioner Gilman.
Let's give her a minute to see if we can come back. Let's just give her Commissioner Gilman a second to call back in. Commissioner Gilman, is that you on the 781 cell phone?
Hi, this is Commissioner Gilman. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, sorry about that. I think I've lost internet completely, so I'm trying to get back in as soon as I can. Until then, we can do it this way.
Yeah, anything else you'd like to add, or is that it on the completeness determination?
Well, I don't know exactly where you lost me. I had finished what I was saying, but it's possible I was only speaking to myself at the end.
Maybe just at the very end. Well, I just want to say I appreciate the willingness to deem it complete. I think that's and focus your record concerns on the supplemental direct. I think that's more consistent with our prior practice on completeness, and given the whole balance of issues, I think probably the best way to proceed. So, Ms. Dundas, I think we're going to deem the application complete. Keep going, and it sounds like we'll have some supplemental direct requests to the company.
Thank you, Chair. Because we've deemed the application complete, the second question to address today is whether the commission will set this meeting matter for hearing in bonk.
I'm
we know
pretty sure
we're
we're going to take this one on bonk with our 20 intervening parties. Commissioner Gilman?
Yeah.
I agree as well.
Okay, in that case, I suggest we address the outstanding motions for intervention. I'll describe all the motions and then pause for a vote on the interventions together at the end. In this proceeding, PUC staff, CEO, and UCA each filed notice of intervention by right. Under Commission Rule 1401C, no action is necessary on these interventions by right, and staff, CEO, and UCA are therefore parties to this proceeding. We also received 17 parties seeking permissive intervention, including 4 governmental entities, the City of Boulder, the City of Denver, the City of Pueblo, and separately the County of Pueblo. Each seek to intervene because the local governments themselves, as well as their residents, are public service customers, and each anticipates the outcome of the Clean Heat Plan will substantially affect their and their residents' interests. We also received 5 motions for permissive intervention from public interest groups, including the Conservation Coalition, comprised for this proceeding of NRDC and Sierra Club, both which are conservation organizations that assert their members have tangible and pecuniary interests, including health, environmental, economic interests that will be affected by the Clean Heat Plan. Energy Outreach Colorado also moved for intervention. They assert a specific interest in advocating for income qualified customers and customers living in disproportionately impacted communities, and state they have a tangible and pecuniary interest in ensuring that its services are not required for a growing number of citizens. SWEEP is a nonprofit whose mission is to advance energy efficiency. WRA, which is a nonprofit conservation organization and claims a tangible interest in protecting the environment through emission reductions from the electricity sector. And then finally, CREST and Physicians for Social Responsibility Colorado chapter move for intervention jointly. They state that the commission and other parties will benefit from the perspective of CREST's focus on all types of energy efficiency, and Physician for Social Responsibility's focus on human health. The third category of intervention is interveners representing large customers or customer associations, and these include Colorado Energy Consumers, Black Hills Colorado Gas, as well as Holy Cross Electric Association. Additionally, the commission received 4 motions for intervention from trade associations and labor groups, including COSACIA, which intervene jointly. Both have members that develop, own, and install solar energy projects, and they state that the decarbonization pathway selected here will directly impact the future need for zero carbon generation resources that its members offer. Denver Pipe Fitters, which has members that install gas pipelines for public service and also install gas pipelines for public services customers. The pipe fitters state that they have been and are supportive of efforts to reduce emissions. However, they state that several of the options in public services proposed Clean Heat Plan will damage their livelihood at the same time not effectively moving towards reducing emissions. The third trade association is calling themselves the Decarbonization Coalition, and it's an informal group composed of energy companies, including Chevron, Occidental Petroleum, and Williams. And they state that they're, quote, committed to delivering a low carbon future while providing affordable and reliable energy today, and plan to address, among other items in the Clean Heat Plan, opportunities associated with emission reduction tools that should be included in the preferred portfolio. The final trade association or labor group is Labor's Local 720, which is a labor organization that represents many members in Colorado, including hundreds of workers employed by utility contractors performing construction services on public services natural gas infrastructure. One note with Local 720's intervention is that they filed an updated motion to intervene past the intervention deadline, but requested the commission find good cause to grant its intervention because it was in the process of retaining counsel and is a local union with limited resources and relies on assistance from union staff and regulatory proceedings. And now the final motion for intervention was received from a public benefit corporation called Project Canary that offers services designed to help lower environmental impact of natural gas production, transportation, and distribution, including independent monitoring and environmental assessment of certified natural gas. So I'll pause for any questions on the 17 permissive interventions and 3 interventions by right, or I can provide a recommendation.
Yeah, if you could provide a brief recommendation, that'd be great.
Sure. Requests for permissive intervention are governed by Rule 1401C, and we've reviewed the motion for permissive intervention and are satisfied that these interveners have met their burden under Rule 1401C. I recommend that you grant the motions for permissive intervention and also find good cause to grant Local 720's late filed motion pursuant to Rule 1401A.
Commissioner Gilman.
I agree.
As do I. You want to keep going?
Yep. Yeah,
Ms.
thank you, Chair. The final item I have for you this morning is regarding the motion for summary judgment filed by several now parties. The move-ins filed this motion on September 6th, and pursuant to Rule 1400B, parties have 14 days to respond to the motion. Since we're just granting interventions now, we recommend clarifying the decision that the Commission expects any responses to this motion by September 20th, which is 14 days from the original filing date.
Commissioner Gilman?
Yes, I agree.
As do I.
Great, thank you, Commissioners. I think Mr. Mendelson might tee up a supplemental direct discussion now.
Thank you. Mr. Mendelson.
Yes, thank you. I'm Mike Mendelson of your advisory staff. Good morning. As Commissioner Gilman mentioned, she has a number of supplemental directs. I've just forwarded those over to Chair Blank to facilitate discussion. So with that, I'll just kick it back to you, Commissioner Gilman.
Commissioner Gilman.
Yeah, thanks. I figured it would be helpful if Mr. Mendelson could get something in front of you, since I have many times tried to furiously take notes on brand new information. So these largely
Thank you. Thanks to both of you.
yeah, these largely hit on many of the areas that I already discussed. So I'll kind of read them out to you and can maybe pause after each one to have any discussion on that with you. So the first is regarding essentially what baseline of a DSM and BE is being used within this direct case. Granted, the interaction with 22A 0309 EG is a little confusing, since that was a fairly recently completed case. But at some points in the record, I found reference to the rebuttal position of public service there, which was, a significantly different amount, certainly of BE, than in the final decision in that proceeding. And in other cases, there are some references to the actual commission decision, C230413. So the first question I would propose is the E3 Clean Heat portfolio analysis incorporates the company's DSM and BE costs and savings levels as proposed upon rebuttal by the company in its recent DSM SI proceeding, 22A 0903 EG, while other company testimony references the final DSM and BE costs and savings values approved via commission decision C230413 in that proceeding. So I'd ask the company to please clarify what costs and savings levels of BE and gas DSM are incorporated in the company's forecast and CHP cost projections. There is somewhat of a significant difference in where those costs are being allocated and to what degree they're in the baseline. And it's just not entirely clear, especially because that timing was difficult. If the company didn't incorporate the levels reflected in the decision at the end of that proceeding, we'd ask them to resubmit their forecast in consideration of the differences that would be reflected by commission decision C230413.
I'm fine with that request, and would really hope the baseline is based on the outcome of that fully litigated proceeding and not something else. So I'm fine with moving forward with that request.
Thank you. Yeah, we think clarity there would be very helpful, since the timing was confusing. I get it, but let's get on the record and understand what we're using and see what the impacts of that were. The second is something I brought up earlier, asking the company to please address the company's compliance with Rule 4731E1 regarding information required to accompany portfolios, including green hydrogen as a clean heat resource. Specifically, that's about compatibility information. I wasn't able to find that in the record. If it exists, I'd be happy if the company could point me to it. So just wanted to understand if that is or is not present in the record, as I have not yet found it.
Fine with that too.
The third issue is regarding that split between green hydrogen and other colors hydrogen. So Rule 4731D2 dictates that the company should provide and quantify certain information on a clean heat resource category basis. And to be clear, green hydrogen was delineated both in statute as well as in our rules as a clean heat resource, while other colors hydrogen were not. So I would ask the company to please identify where information specific to green hydrogen as compared to all hydrogen is located within the application. If green hydrogen is not fully addressed as an individual resource category, I'd ask the company to please provide separate annual and total cost information and throughput projections in decatherms for green hydrogen, specifically for all portfolios that include hydrogen as a resource, so we can understand that differentiation that I think was necessitated by how the rules are written.
Also fine with that request. Would like to see additional information on the green hydrogen, and it seems like it's already asked for in our rules. So I support that request as well.
Thank you. The fourth area is more of an overall looking down the road at what this all means. We see in the E3 analysis, they indicate that gas throughput may fall by around 80% by 2050 through public services distribution system, while costs presented in that analysis of green hydrogen and recovered methane are expected to be at levels that are well above the typical cost of geological gas as identified by the commodity cost projections included in the company's direct case. So I'd ask the company to provide a rate analysis in an executable format to show the anticipated impact, the design and level of total customer rates for every 5 years from 2025 to 2050 for each portfolio. And for that, they should utilize the company's forecasted natural gas commodity costs, forecasted capital expenditures and infrastructure investments, and anticipated future actions to continue to align greenhouse gas emissions with state policy objectives. Within that, I'd ask them to identify all key assumptions used in that analysis, including those three factors previously listed, as well as the forecasted throughput decreases, changes in rate design given the decline in throughput projected, the annual escalation factor, the expected capital expenditures, future costs of low carbon fuel commodity options, and throughput. I might have said throughput decreases twice. I'll check my language.
No
And
worries.
expected impacts on the peak system capacity requirements, and if those necessitate changes.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to see that one. And just that quick question for you. It seems like in the gas rate case, as part of the supplemental direct there, we asked for a 15-year rate model out through whatever it was, 2036, 2037. So is that sort of what you have in mind, sort of projected out to 2050? Maybe not every year, but in five-year increments. Is that sort of the intuition about what you're looking for?
Yeah, the crux here is if you look at the company's preferred portfolio, they're seeing that throughput could decrease as much as 80%, while at the same time using more expensive commodities than we're using today. And those both present, potential real affordability challenges as we look for customers in the future to understand how they see the rates moving with both investment in these commodities as well as the throughput changes. And we just don't have any sort of picture of what that looks like. When you put that all together, what does that mean for the impact on customer rates that are projected? We can't carve this just to base rates because those commodities that are coming in are significantly more expensive, at least in the E3 analysis that's presented. Their hydrogen equivalent's about $28 an MMBTU, and I think blue is like 12.8, or maybe it's recovered methane, but each of them pretty significantly exceed what we tend to see for geological gas costs. And so we're just not able to see, in part, I think this is looking at what does the future look like for this system, for customers, for what we can expect. And those two factors combined make me very interested in what does this really mean like for future rate impacts, and we're not able to see that with what we have at this point.
Well, and I just add a third one, which is it seems like the company is not very interested in slowing down capital investment in this business. So, and that doesn't even get into future decommissioning costs and safety investments over time. So I think the capital invested in this business is the third piece.
Yeah, if you have any kind of modification to how we refer to capital expenditures, we do have it in here, but yeah, I think that's the crux of the issue. It's like, what does this actually look like when we combine steep declines in throughput, more expensive commodities, and conceivably continued increase in annual capital expenditures on the system. And I think that insight will be helpful. We've asked for executable formats that would, ideally allow for some tinkering adjustment. We thought it was reasonable to base this on the company's preferred portfolio, but if this is executable, it certainly stands to reason to me that different portfolios and different variables could be evaluated in such a.
Yeah, so Mr. Mendelson, if you can add in the order that we'd like to, it should be structured flexibly enough to allow us to maybe look at some alternative scenarios, and maybe a loose link to that gas rate case model, saying something to the extent that's a useful starting point would be good. No, thank you for this, Commissioner Gilman. I'm really interested in this analysis. If we reduce throughput by that much, continue capital expenses, and incur a bunch of other costs for higher than geologic gas, it's like, where do we land? So I think it'd be really nice to know where we're going. So thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, fifth area. This is regarding the forecasting requirements. So I would ask the company, we within the gas rules in section 4731A1E listed specific requirements for forecasting for future gas throughput and capacity. So I'd ask the company to please identify the specific location in the filing where the company provided information responsive to the requirement of 4731A1E, including the impacts on those localized forecasts of building codes, changes in line extension policies, building electrification programs and incentives, and the price elasticity of demand. Long story short, I have not found yet in the record where there's any localized forecasting nor specific quantitative acknowledgement of those different factors and their influence on forecasting.
I'm fine with that.
Number 6, the E3 analysis identifies various costs and benefits on page 24 of their report, which differ from the specific costs and benefits identified in Rule 4731 D1E. It asks the company to please identify the location in the filing where the company completed a cost benefit analysis of each portfolio specific to the requirements of 4731 D1E. And also, if the cost benefit analysis of each portfolio isn't currently contained in the company's filing, to please provide that.
I'm fine with that.
Number 7. Sorry, there are 7. There are 10. Full disclosure. Identify the source of data. This one's fairly simple within the E3 report, E3 analysis, on tables 19 and 20. On pages 30 to 31, the company provided some information on the anticipated gas usage of homes by vintage, and I'd like the company to identify the source of the data contained in those tables 19 and 20, because I don't believe it's cited.
Can you tell me again what those tables are? I'm just scrambling to pull that up.
Yeah, and full disclosure, my pages, I think Mr. Mendel soon you can confirm. I struggle with this when the page numbers don't match the PDF numbers. So I think it's page 30 to 31 in the actual of the report. So like the number at the bottom, but it's tables 19 and 20, essentially showing expected gas needs for specific building types of different vintages.
I'm fine with that request.
Just simple. I mean, it came from somewhere. I just like to understand what the source is so we can better understand the reliability of the data.
All right, I'm just scrambling to pull it up, but keep going. I'll pull it up, and I don't think I have any. Keep going.
Number 8, please provide tables similar to table 22 that is on page 33 of the E3 analysis for all combinations of vintages, building types, measures, and climate zones. The company identifies those myriad of issues to identify the gas usage for different facilities, but just provides the one example within this. So it certainly is my assumption that they have the other tables, and it would be helpful for those to be provided for each of the different combinations of vintage building type, measures, and climate zones.
I'm still. I think I'm good on that one.
Okay. Okay. Number 9. Ask the company to please provide work papers for the avoided gas infrastructure costs and electric infrastructure costs associated with each portfolio.
I'm fine with that.
Within, I think it's within Mr. Eiley's direct testimony, he indicates some presumed costs for each of those per portfolio, but we're not able to determine where those came from. So those work papers would be helpful to understand what is and is not included within those assumptions.
Okay.
And number 10 is please provide utility and total incentive levels and adoption rates supporting the electrification curve shown in figure 4 of the E3 analysis.
I'm fine with that.
That's all I've got.
That's all. Well, I'd just say I think we got 17 parties in this case, so looking for them through discovery and everything else to generate a robust record. Ms. Dundas, Mr. Mendelson, anything else?
No, we can add these to the order if the commission is okay with it. I guess I would ask how much time we should provide the company.
Well, and Commissioner Gilman, are you all right with us going out? ABC, I presume they have your specific language.
They do have it. Yep. Yeah, I mean, a few of these are pretty easy. Cite where this came from or shows where it is, and a few are more difficult in terms of analysis. So I'm not sure if you have an idea of what you think is fair, Mr. Mendelson. Is 3 weeks fair? You know, what's been typical for requests for this?
Yeah, some of the analysis is a little larger. I think 3 weeks would be adequate. I hope.
3 weeks from the effective date of the decision, just to clarify.
Sure.
Commissioner Gilman?
Does that sound reasonable?
I'm fine with that. Ms. Dundas, Mr. Mendelson, anything else? I think this can be an ABC order. Let me go. Actually, do you mind? Can you just do this really quick, TBC? I wouldn't mind taking a quick look at the supplemental direct requests. Does that screw up the schedule?
I don't believe so. Mr. Davis or Mr. Mendelson can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if we just don't get the order out by Friday, it will just auto deem complete, but that's not a problem since you determined that that completeness is okay today.
Yeah, why don't we do this one, TBC? I'll turn it around really quick. I just saw these questions for the first time in the last hour. I'd like to take a quick look at the language. So let's do this one TBC.
No problem.
Anything else on this?
That's it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Commissioner Gilman. Proceeding number 23A-0394E, Mr. Davis, ECA, PCCA.
Yes, for the final item of this morning's meeting, this is Public Service Company of Colorado's application for approval of the expenses it recovered last year through the company's electric commodity adjustment and its purchase capacity cost adjustment. In other words, this application is the annual 2022 ECA PCCA prudency review. Public Service describes in its application filing a comprehensive analysis of the company's electric system operations in 2022. And in addition to presenting a complete accounting for the costs incurred and recorded that year, the company presents information on curtailments, must runs, utility generation performance, independent power producer generation performance, and overall system operations. The company further discusses planned and unplanned transmission outages, planned and unplanned generation outages, and other events that the company claims are indicative of the clean energy transition. Public Service's application is supported with testimony from 6 witnesses. Staff and UCA have filed requests for hearing in this matter. In addition to the general examination of the costs, staff seeks to examine, among other items, the curtailments of renewable energy and the impact of those curtailments on the ECA costs, including the company's past, current, and forecasted curtailment costs and curtailment costs that affect the RESA. It also seeks to examine the performance of the company-owned Cheyenne Ridge Wind Project and the company-owned Rush Creek Wind Project, and the impact of the production tax credits on customer costs. Staff also wants to closely review the company's must-run unit designations and associated costs in 2022. UCA plans to examine many of those same issues and lists further topics of interest, including whether Pueblo Unit 3 was dispatched with the social cost of carbon during 2022, and if so, what that impact was, whether the new lower rating on a certain transmission line is reasonable, especially given years of operation at its previous capacity rating, and how much, if any, of the must-run costs are related to project construction of a certain other transmission line. The matter is on today's agenda for a decision on whether to refer the matter to an administrative law judge. I think given the press of business before the Commission en banc, the matter could be deemed complete and referred to an ALJ by minute entry this morning.
Commissioner Gilman.
I agree with your recommendation.
As do I, and I think that can be an ABC decision, Mr. Davis.
Okay, well, I think we could do it without a decision by minute entry.
All right, we can do it by minute entry. Thank you,
Thank you.
sir. Commissioner Gilman, anything else before we adjourn?
Nothing additional, thanks.
Thanks all. We're adjourned.